Thanks for tuning in once again to more college football handicapping talk on OFN Preview on Prime Sports Network. And that means Marc Lawrence from PlaybookSports.com joins me once again. Marc, good to see you again after our horse racing program earlier this morning with John Hardoon, the red-hot John Hardoon.
Yes, he is. Yes, he's a red-hot guy right now. That's good to have.
And he's picking 12-1 shots, so yes, I'm betting all his stuff.
Yeah, in a couple of races he is. Yes, yeah. Exactly. Yep.
And we're pretty red hot too. So things have gone really well for the first few weeks of both the college and NFL season. So very happy with how things have turned out at this point. Again, it's early, but this is and actually the good thing is maybe it's a bad thing that we're out of September now. So now we're into a new month. So hopefully we can pick up where we left off. So far as my college football picks, under my formula, I'm at plus 960. Nice. Let's see. That was, Actually, you know what? I didn't even total up my stuff from last week. And that's a good thing because last week, total 3-1 on the 5 stars, 4-0 on the 4 stars. So we're at 7-1 on the top 2 picks in college. So we're really very pleased about that. And then in the NFL, we are also doing pretty good. 5-1 overall with the top 5 and 4 stars, and a total of 7-1 with our top picks overall. So kicking ass so far this season. And obviously, PlaybookSports.com's newsletter and this right here, the Playbook Guide, has a lot to do with it, as I often talk about. This is what I back up all of my information with, and what we'll be talking about all of the games today about. So this is a great investment, and we'll see how things continue to rock in October. So.
That sounds great. It's been more than just pretty good, Greg. It's been terrific the month of September, and
yes,
sort of sorry to see it in the rearview mirror, but we'll forge forward and see what October brings.
That's right, and we're starting the SEC, and we're going to go ahead and talk about there's 2 really huge games in the SEC this week, and there's really a ton of big games in college football this week. I was looking at the 3:30 schedule, and I was going, wow, good game in this channel, good game in that channel. It's 5 really good games at 3:30, and a ton of good games overall. So it's a really great Saturday in college football, and you got this Ole Miss Alabama game that is at 3:30. Matter of fact, the next game, one of the games we'll talk about also, is at 12 is Arkansas, Georgia, and you end the night with Florida, Kentucky. So and LSU and Auburn. So it's a huge day in the SEC. First true road test for Ole Miss. And if you look at Alabama, the last time we really paid attention to them was a couple of weeks ago when they had the scare against Florida. Ole Miss has actually done pretty well considering the series. I mean, usually, SEC teams don't fare very well against Alabama. Right. Nobody fares well against Alabama, but Ole Miss has won a couple of games recently. They've also covered 6 out of the last 9 against Alabama. It's the big point spread, and I figure even though Ole Miss defense isn't all that good, they're a little bit better than they were last year. But the offense, I don't really think Alabama is going to be able to stop Ole Miss's offense. So I think this is one of those games that you probably see, I don't know, maybe 49-40, something like that, where Ole Miss covers. And who knows? I don't know if they'll have a shot for an upset, but I wouldn't be shocked if they did.
Well, I wouldn't be shocked if they did here either. Lane Kiffin probably wants this game more than any game on his schedule for obvious reasons. His offense is smoking. They're number 1 in the country in total offense and scoring offense. Nick Saban knows he's going to have his hands filled here. My biggest concern for this game is last year when these 2 teams met, Mississippi State was a 22.5-point home dog. They're taking less than that at Alabama this year. And I don't know if Mississippi's up as that much or Alabama's down that much. I don't see Bama being down that much. Mississippi is probably improved from last year, but they stripped a lot of the value out of this play here, largely because Alabama has not been cashing tickets, and Mississippi's got this prolific offense. But I'm with you. I'm going to grab the points here. I don't know if they'll pull the rug, but I think they'll keep this football game close.
Yeah, Kiffin, by the way, 8-4 against the spread is a double-digit dog. The money line is plus 430. I don't mind throwing a couple of bucks on that just in case it's a game. Look, Corral is one of the top quarterback prospects now in college football, and this is going to be the big tester against Alabama. Next up, I tell you what, let's still hang in there in the SEC with our next couple of games, and this one is LSU and Auburn. We'll talk about our picks first, and then we'll go into the Arkansas-Georgia game later. But this LSU-Auburn game is another game that I'm going to have as far as my picks, because LSU is a 3-point favorite, so I like LSU in this spot. Auburn, very fortunate to survive last week, as former LSU Tiger quarterback T.J. Finley had that miraculous play on the last play of the game, basically, for Auburn on 4th down. I don't know how he got out of the sack, and then once he did, because it was a blitz, the receiver was wide open, but it was a gutsy comeback for Auburn to avoid the monumental upset by Georgia State. LSU, meanwhile, seems to be heading back in the right direction after the UCLA loss, and there was a lot of things about what's going on with LSU, but they've won a couple of games, and I think they are. And look, they got beat up by by Auburn last year, so I think there's a little revenge there. And a couple of trends. Well, here's the big trend. Auburn is 2-19 against the spread. Their last 21 versus winning teams with revenge following a straight-up win. That's a big number. I like LSU minus the 3.
I like LSU minus the 3 here as well, Greg. And let's tell it like it is, okay? That win by Auburn last week, where we could pat them on the back for the huge comeback win, T.J. Finley throwing that 19-yard touchdown pass, should never, ever have happened. I don't know if you saw the replays of the game, but the play before that, Georgia State wide receiver caught a pass to extend their drive, which would have denied Auburn even touching the football from that point forward when Georgia State had a lead. The referees ruled the pass incomplete. The replay showed he did catch the ball, but they ruled in Auburn's favor. It just so happens, Greg, the refs were SEC refs.
Of course.
Okay?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. That's why it's hard to win it when you got a lot to deal with. It's not just the players.
Exactly. So, they're thrilled, Auburn, for the victory here. Georgia State had one stripped right away from them because of the Zebras. So how does Auburn approach this football game this week? Probably relieved, obviously, but I'm with you. I like this LSU football program. I think they're on the come right now, and I think Auburn's struggling here. I know they played a little gutsy game against Penn State up in Happy Valley, but I am not a Bo Nix fan. I think he's serviceable at best. And I think the much better quarterback is on the other sideline in Max Johnson at LSU. I think by the time his career is over, they're going to be talking about Max Johnson the same way they talked about Joe Burrow. Now, whether he'll lead them to the same promised land that Joe Burrow did or not remains to be seen, but he is that talented of a quarterback. I'm going to go with the talent in the situation in this football game and lay the small handful of points here.
Yeah, and I get the feeling that chances are you would and look, we don't even know who's going to start. If Nix will start or if Finley will start. I'd be surprised if Finley doesn't play after what he did for them last week, and it's his former team. So we'll see what happens there. By the way, so it's, again, just take a look at the schedule. It's 12 o'clock Georgia, Arkansas, 3:30 Alabama, Ole Miss, 6 o'clock Kentucky, Florida, and then 9 o'clock LSU and Auburn. So a huge day in the SEC. Let's talk about some ACC games now that I'm going to be picking. And I just love one of my upset picks from last week, and that is what Georgia Tech did to North Carolina. And that was a huge win for the program. I think we even talked about that game last week.
Yes, we did.
Jeff Collins got his signature win, and now it's on to playing Pittsburgh. And I understand why Pitt's a 3-point favorite, but to me, I think this is just I think it's an indication that people just still aren't sure about Georgia Tech. I am. I like the quarterback switch. So that lifted up the offense a little bit because he was the week 1 starter, and that's going to be good for Georgia Tech moving forward. Love the defense under Jeff Collins. I mean, his defense is just, they hit hard, they're physical. They shut down that high-powered UNC offense. Pitt's also one of the best offensive teams in college football, so I think Georgia Tech's well prepared for that. I know Pittsburgh has dominated the series of late, but Georgia Tech is 4-0 in this ITS. Let me just let it in ITS 4-0. And I think they're going to go 5-0, and I think they're going to beat Pittsburgh. They're getting 3, and I think that they're for real. Anytime a really good offensive team plays a really good defensive team, I usually, like 90% of the time, favor the defensive team.
Well, as you mentioned here, you have a Georgia Tech football team that's only 2-2 in the scoreboard, but they have indeed won the stats in all 4 of those football games, 4-0 in the stats, ITS. They're playing a lot better than their record indicates here. My biggest concern here, though, is the role that they're in. And basically, my database comes up and says that home dogs that come off a big win when they pulled an upset as a dog of 14 or more have struggled the next game. They're only 9-19 to the spread. The Pitt football team here, they've got a quarterback here that I believe is going to be playing in the National Football League next year, Kenny Pickett, and a lot of people are talking about him as being maybe the next Dan Marino. And I don't know if that comparison is because they're both played at Pittsburgh or whether he has the Dan Marino talent. I don't think it's quite that, but it's obviously it's fodder for the sports writers.
Yeah. He's a good quarterback, though, yeah.
Yes, he is. He's a good quarterback, and he means everything to the football team. So I'm with you. I have a very slight lean to Georgia Tech here. I don't like having to overcome 9-19 situations here, but I'm enamored by Jeff Collins and the fact that they have out-yarded every opponent they've played this year.
Okay, another game in the SEC that I like, and it's time to jump on Wake Forest. It's a good matchup. They're 4-0 against 3-1 Louisville. Louisville's coming off the big win on the road against Florida State. I just think that when you take a look at that, it's asking a little bit too much. You beat Central Florida, in a big national televised night game. Then you go on the road in a conference game and you win a big road game like that. Even though Florida State's not all that good, it's Louisville, Florida State. It was a big program type of win in the conference. Now to expect Louisville for a 3rd consecutive game to do something, another upset, or this would definitely be an upset against Wake Forest. I just don't see it. It's too much to ask. Wake Forest, if you look at them, they have covered 6 straight as a home favorite of less than 13 in revenge games. And I just think Wake Forest is every bit as good as they've looked. I don't know how they compare with the best in the conference, but this is now for the first time in years, this is a wide open ACC race, and Wake Forest is right there in it.
They are, and they're probably the Rodney Dangerfield of that conference here. They're doing a lot of good things and not getting much credit for doing just that. You got a head coach here in Dave Clawson, who's a terrific head coach, and he flies under the radar as well. So their personalities mesh between Wake Forest and Dave Clawson here. And you can say what you want about Louisville beating Florida State. And yes, Florida State may be down this year, but the players on that Louisville football team, they don't believe that Florida State's down. All they know is they beat Florida State, okay? And that's all that mattered to them. They beat Florida State. And they could be coming up flat in a football game just like this. I'm with you. I like Wake Forest in this football game. I think they continue to be undervalued in a situation like this. And you take a look here also that the one number there was those short-lived celebrations, teams coming off a straight-up underdog wins in their conference, as they are doing here. Louisville 1-8 to the spread the next game. I'm with Wake Forest and with you on this football game.
Yeah, and also Wake Forest 8-3-1 against the spread their last 12 as a home favorite. The Wake favored by 7 against Louisville. Next game, talk about riding the upset picks from last week to a short number this week. I absolutely fell in love with Jonathan Smith after Oregon State's ass whooping of USC. I've said this for the last couple of years that I just love this Jonathan Smith-Oregon State marriage. And at some point, he is going to break through. Now, they got the Oregon win, but nobody noticed because it's just, everything that was going on, nobody really cared. But it was a sign that they're headed in the right direction. They lost that first game against Purdue. It was a close game. Purdue made some, plays late to cover the game. Sort of like a backdoorish kind of favorite cover. But since then, Oregon State, they found a quarterback too. I mean, they've got a good receiver. They've got a good running back. They got a good quarterback. All these guys have never really been in this role before. This is for real, this team. When this line opened at +2, I was like, oh, I love that. +2. You got to be kidding me. No respect for Oregon State. Now they're a 1.5-point favorite. Okay, I'm still fine with that because what's that saying is that everybody like me, we know what Oregon State's doing here. We know that they're the better team. There's just no doubt. They're the better team. And I don't see them coming into this matchup feeling too good about themselves. I understand it's the first time they beat USC in like 50 years at the Coliseum, but they've lost 9 straight to Washington. So here's another team that has to be on their checklist of teams and situations that we have to, cross off. And I see Oregon State beating still an overrated Washington team.
Overrated they are, Washington. You take a look at this football team here. Last week, they win a football game in overtime, and they were out-yarded over 120 yards in the victory. That's what you have to do. You can't look at the scores. You have to look inside the stats. Look at those box scores and see exactly what happened. Did they earn the victory, or was the victory handed to them because of turnovers and situations as such? That was the case for Washington. I don't believe in this football team. They're not even anything close to what they were when Chris Peterson was there.
Yep.
Haven't been, and I still think it's going to be a long while before they are. So they're being priced on name and reputation largely. Oregon State is going to end up having to pay the price for their success under Jonathan Smith. He's a terrific head coach. We're seeing that with this meteoric rise they're making here. They're the dregs of the Pac-12 conference for the longest time, and now they're competitive, and they'll be bowling this year. They're a terrific football team. They put up 40 or more points in each of their last 3 games in a row. I think they knocked the Huskies off in this football game as well.
And by the way, this is only Lake's second road game as a head coach. His first road game didn't go all that well. Got beat up by Michigan a few weeks ago. And they are 0-2 ITS in the stats versus Power 5 teams this year. And by the way, I had Cal as one of my single-digit upsets last week, so I was very upset that Cal did not finish that job off. But Oregon State hopefully will apply a little bit of revenge for me after they helped me out big time last week as well. So, look, 9 straight losses. I think that's enough. It's time to put a beat down on Washington. Unfortunately, I haven't looked at the schedule yet. There's usually only 1 or 2 Pac-12 games that get televised. They all get thrown into oblivion on the Pac-12 channel. I just have no idea which. I guess they're probably going to broadcast the Arizona State UCLA game, I would think, on ESPN at 10:30.
Well, you're talking about maybe national coverage, but that's the thing about college football this year, Greg. If you look at the back page of this week's Playbook newsletter, we outline every game, game number, odds, and starting times, and what television network the games are being broadcast on. Of the over 60 games this week, there are only 5 of them that are not being televised anywhere. Okay, so you can find them somewhere on some network, off the dish or somewhere. I don't know where it'll be for this game.
Well, it'll be on the Pac-12. One of the games will be a couple of the games.
Network.
Pac-12 network. Unfortunately,
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Right.
So it's out there. But
yes.
And then the Oregon Stanford game too. It'd be interesting to see who has that at 3:30. Maybe it's on in the middle of the day on network TV, but I don't know. I haven't looked at it yet. Okay. Also, now let's get to a huge game that starts at 2:30. Boy, all these games. It's just going to be so many games to record. This one is also one of the better ones of the week, and it's Notre Dame hosting Cincinnati. And Notre Dame was my 4-star pick last week, and one of the reasons because they were a dog. We love Notre Dame as a dog, and we love Notre Dame as a home dog. 21-10-1 ATS less 32 as a home dog, including 10-1 ATS less 11 versus 800 or better opponents. Of course, Cincinnati hasn't lost yet. Notre Dame 26-game home winning streak. Don't forget, they knocked off Clemson at home as well last year. Cincinnati, by the way, lost the stats when they played at Indiana. They won the stats against Murray State and Miami of Ohio. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, really impressed. And by the way, I don't know if you remember watching that game. That really good linebacker was a McFadden, I think it was, for Indiana. They threw him out of the game for that stupid thing that they throw the guys out for. And as soon as that happened, Cincinnati was able to move the ball up and down the field.
It turned on a dime on that play right there. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong from that point forward for Indiana in the football game. So they were very fortuitous, were the Cincinnati Bearcats. They're going to have to bring their A game here, Greg, for a couple of reasons. Number one, this is a step-up game for Cincinnati. They want to win and convince everybody that they are playoff worthy. To do that, they have to knock off a good Power 5 team, an undefeated Power 5 football team. That makes this a step-up game. Notre Dame has been in a lot of step-up games, okay? This is not going to be anything new to them, this territory coming in here. And you can rest assured that Brian Kelly is going to let them know that the Vegas odds makers think Cincinnati is the better football team because they're the home underdog in this contest here. Luke Fickell has been not much, okay, on the road. That's where he's vulnerable the most. But when he's on the road against winning football teams, he's been in 11 games like that. He's only won 3 of them on the scoreboard. And knocking off an undefeated team at home, I think, is really, really tough. Remember, 19 consecutive regular season wins for Notre Dame. I think it's 20 come Saturday. I don't know any reason why they're the home underdog in this contest.
Also, Notre Dame, not only you mentioned the home dog situation overall, but 4-0 straight up and against the spread their last 4 as a home dog. So definitely going to ride the Irish once again in that. And look, I know Cone may or may not be hurt, but I like what the backup did. And I would hope that my backups at Notre Dame can play like that. Because if I'm a quarterback, one of these high school quarterbacks, and I know Notre Dame is not like they used to be, but I'm sorry. If you come calling for me and you say it's Notre Dame, even though I'm not a Notre Dame fan, I'm going, hey, you know what? I think I got to go to Notre Dame. It's freaking Notre Dame.
Let me say this about that, okay? First of all, Cone is going to play. He's been practicing. He's been rolled to be starting, okay? So he will be the starter. If he were not starting, okay, I would still be on Notre Dame, largely because I love backup quarterbacks that are filling in for starters and making that first start.
That's right.
But the team rallies around them in the biggest of way, and he showed last week why they should rally around him. So either way, Cone or no Cone, we're on the Irish.
Okay, now here's a game that we highlighted last week. We teased last week, and that is UAB at home against Liberty. And this is a matchup because UAB finally getting to play at home in their new stadium, Protective Stadium. So they got the brand new stadium. The place is going to be rocking. And UAB a 2-point favorite in this one. If you take a look at Bill Clark's numbers, they're just outrageous when you take a look at him at home. And this is not even with the new stadium. 25-4 straight up, 18-6-1 against the spread at home with head coach Bill Clark. That's awesome. Look, we like Liberty. They're a very good spread team. This is not about Liberty. Liberty had a downer last week against Syracuse. You know, they made some mistakes. They need a field goal kicker, by the way. A field goal kicker lost the game for them. Not just because he missed kicks, but because Hugh Freeze didn't even want to try field goals, and he was forced to basically have the team go out there to try for touchdowns. So they need a new field goal kicker at Liberty. But look, UAB is a good football team. I've watched both teams play this year. I just think UAB is just about as good and maybe a little bit better than Liberty. And with all the emotion of the new stadium on top of that, I feel pretty confident taking the Blazers.
This is a bowl-worthy game, Greg. I wouldn't be surprised if these two teams, if they want to come back again and play in the bowl game, these two teams could do just that. They're both on the same caliber of one another. I think what maybe is not being counted for here is this new stadium, and they will be hiked to the max in this football game. The fans will. The stadium's absolutely beautiful. A lot of good reasons for Birmingham to come and play in this game, and you have to always be fearful of Hugh Freeze because he can win any football game on any given day, and he's got Malik Willis,
Yes.
a terrific
He's
quarterback.
dangerous, yes.
Yes, he's very, very dangerous. Okay, but all things being equal, this is Birmingham's debut of this new stadium, and Bill Clark, as you mentioned, has the resume of knowing how to win football games at home, where he will win this football game.
I hope that one now. I know ESPN Plus loves to put these types of games, on that device, but I hope ESPN throws them a bone and puts it on puts it on one of their ESPN channels, like 208, whatever, on DirecTV, whatever that number is. But we'll see. Okay, now let's talk about this MAC game, the last game of the games, top games, not upsets, that I wanted to talk about, and that's Buffalo at home against Western Michigan. This is a noon start. The last time these two teams played was in 2017, and the final score was 71-68, Western Michigan. So that
was that the basketball game when you're talking about?
No, it was not.
Okay.
Yeah, they probably had the over the basketball matchup.
Yes, they did.
Okay, so here is. It's funny. Now I was able to get this stat out of the guide, and then it was backed up in the newsletter. Buffalo at home, their last 19 home games. You're not going to believe this. 18-1 against the spread. That's incredible. 18-1 against the spread at home, including their 3-point loss to Coastal Carolina a few weeks ago. And we know how good Coastal Carolina is. It's nice that Western Michigan, the nice season they're having, they upset Pitt, and they just beat San Jose State. So, okay, that's nice and all, but you can't deny those stats. And Buffalo has also covered 4 straight against Western Michigan off a win. So I'm taking Buffalo. There ain't no doubt about that.
Well, you can also take this game into the midweek alert, Greg, that newsletter that's filled with all these great stats, okay? And there's a strength against a weakness here that really jumps off the page. And basically what it is Western Michigan's rush defense is horrible. They allow 5.3 yards a carry. On the other side, Buffalo gains 5.7 yards a carry. So you've got what I call a 5-by-5 team in Buffalo here at home in a win situation like this. There's no doubt in my mind where I'm going here. A home dog that's a 5-by-5, put me on him every time.
Okay, now let's talk about a few of these outright upsets that I'm going to go with this week. And let's start with the game that nobody's going to watch on Saturday night, and that is, except me, because I won't watch the whole game, but I want to see if UConn can steal this win, and I think they might be able to. They've actually played better the last week and a half. And I know this because I had Army early on Saturday a couple weeks ago. And they get off to that, like, I don't know what it was. It was like 42-0. And I was like, all right, that game's over. They were like a 34-point cover. And then Army just decided, I guess, I'm going to play our 8th string guys. We're not even going to play anymore. But UConn actually, they put their backup quarterback in, and they started to move the football. And I know it was against backups, but you could kind of sense that they were kind of feeling good about themselves. And remember, Chris, this is only like, second, third game without their head coach gone. Then last week against Wyoming, it was beat Wyoming as a 30-point dog. So I just think they're in a run now. I don't care how bad they are. Bad teams can get into like positive, hey, we're feeling good about ourselves. But they still haven't won. So I think they're still trying to knock over that win. And if they're going to beat anybody, I think this is the perfect week to try to do it. Because Vanderbilt is not used to being a favorite at all. Matter of fact, if you look at, they're 2-12 against the spread their last 14 after they allow 40+. They're 0-2 against the spread as a home favorite since 2019. And 3-15 against the spread their last 18 at home off back-to-back losses, with the last loss in double digits. So, but that's not about upsetting the game. I just still feel that this is a good spot for a possible upset.
Well, I know this. When you're talking about two bad teams, garbage to garbage, you don't ever lay the points, especially points like this where a football team isn't capable or knows how to handle that.
Like last night's NFL game?
like last night's NFL football game. You had Cincinnati laying more than a touchdown. Yes, they won the football game as expected, but they did not get the money. Okay, Vanderbilt. This might be, and I may go on record as saying, the worst line of the college football season.
Wow, really?
Not that Connecticut was deserving of taking fewer points. It's that Vanderbilt should not be laying 2 touchdowns to Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Okay.
To Connecticut. Yeah.
Well, they shouldn't lay 2 touchdowns to their second string team. Okay,
Yeah.
because they wouldn't be able to handle just that. I have a difficult time backing UConn, but you hit it right on the head. They're playing arguably their best football of the season. So we're going to change UConn. Well, you can't to UConn this week. Okay.
You hope so.
Okay.
All right. Now here's a serious game, and this is a late night game, Indiana Penn State, and it won't be a whiteout because I think they only have those once a year, and that is Penn State 12.5 over Indiana. And you normally would say, oh yeah, look at the way Indiana, very disappointing this year. Penix is throwing ton of interceptions. He's nowhere near the exciting quarterback he was last year, especially in week 1 against this team when he had that miraculous finish. A little controversial, too, when they gave him the touchdown. I didn't think that was a touchdown or a 2-point conversion that beat Penn State, whatever that was. But whatever. It started that magical season for Indiana. But now the magic is kind of gone. Indiana is just it's just not feeling it so far. Penn State's had a great season. The defense has been fantastic. So far, no blemishes. But I get the feeling when there's a 12.5-point spread that maybe this is the game where Penn State almost finds himself in big trouble. Now, I don't know if Indiana's definitely going to pull it off, but I think there are possibilities here. I just like the way Indiana has played Penn State recently. Not only did they beat them last year, they've covered the last 3. And there's also a few other trends that back away from Penn State in this one. So I'm going to say that maybe Indiana has a chance to pull off the upset, and they're almost a 4-1 dog.
Well, because you've got 2 teams going in opposite directions here at this stage of the football season here, all you need to do is go back and look at what the line in this football game was before the season began. And the line in this football game, this is maximum value to Indiana, and it's all based upon what's happened here thus far this football season. Not based upon the talent on hand on the rosters on these 2 football teams, but you've got an overrated, I'm going to say overrated, but a fat as all get out team in Penn State and a hungry football team in Indiana coming in here. And I don't want to fade a hungry dog when he was going to be getting a lot less points earlier, and now he's getting a whole lot more in a football game like this. I agree with you. This is a very dangerous spot for Penn State. If they don't watch, they could get tripped up in this game because it's still a talented Indiana football team.
Okay, and then the third of the 3 upsets that I'm looking at this week, and I might have a couple others, but these are the top 3, is Oklahoma, Kansas State. And Kansas State kind of fell flat last week, and maybe that's going to happen when you have to continuously rely on your backup quarterback. I just feel so sorry for Kansas State without Skylar Thompson because I think they could have had a really, really special season if Thompson would have stayed healthy. But there is a possibility that he might play this week. They haven't shut that down. It's possible. Will Howard apparently has a better chance of returning, and that's important. That's the reason why Kansas State's offense, if you're playing your third-string quarterback, you can see why they got beat up by Oklahoma State last week. First road game of the year for Oklahoma. Remember last week when we talked about Oklahoma, West Virginia, we were saying, well, it's a 17-point number. I'm going to take Oklahoma anyway because they've got this great history against West Virginia. All the trends points on Oklahoma. I'm going to just go, okay, you know what? Maybe this is the game that they get out of it, and they're back to being Oklahoma. But if they don't, then I'm going to remember that. And they didn't. They were very fortunate to beat West Virginia last week. So I am done with Oklahoma right now, or at least for another week or two, because if you look at the series, Kansas State has beaten Oklahoma 2 straight years, home and away. Now, again, Skylar Thompson has almost everything to do with that, but he may not play in the game. That's still, though, enough for me to feel like there's a possibility. Because, like I said, I don't understand what's going on with Oklahoma right now. They're missing something.
Well, they're obviously not the football team they were expected to be. We picked them to win the national championship this year, and they'll probably most likely make the playoffs. Do they lose a game in the Big 12 this year? Maybe.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, but again, maybe not. Okay. But everybody right now, it's like stocks. Okay. This is buy time for Oklahoma right now because everybody's selling. Okay. Getting off the Oklahoma bandwagon, getting off that train. Let me tell you this, okay? In the beginning of the season, before the season began, Oklahoma was a 23.5 point favorite in this football game. That's been sliced in half, more than in half in this football game. And you can rest assured Lincoln Riley is going to let his football team know about the fact that they lost as 24-point favorites to Kansas State last year and 34-point favorites to Kansas State the year before.
Yeah.
Enough is enough is enough.
Yeah.
So I'm going for the value here. I'm going for a mean, angry Oklahoma football team that nobody wants, who's undefeated and laying half of the points that I was expected to lay at the beginning of the season.
You know, the good thing about what's going on with Oklahoma, if you want to see there's like a silver lining in this, is the fact that if you take out the late comeback by Tulane in the first game of the season, Oklahoma's defense is much improved.
Yes, it is.
And that was the thing that Lincoln Riley knew he had to do. He had to fix if they were going to be true championship contenders. So the defense now appears to be at that level that he was always looking for. Now it's the offense that's struggling. So if that offense starts to click at some point, then yes, watch out, everybody.
Yeah, they need Spencer Rattler to wake up here real bad right now. I mean, he was the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy at the beginning of the football season. He's slipped so far down right now, but he can still recover. He's got plenty of time to do just that. And he needs a breakout game, and it could come in a game like this. And if Skylar Thompson does not play, I think it's Katie bar the door for Oklahoma here.
Yeah, especially if it's the third string. Okay, now let's just quickly go through some other games that we just don't want to pass up on because they were big games. Arkansas, Georgia. Georgia's a 17.5 point favorite in this one. Arkansas was my 5-star pick last week. I think they would have blown out A&M if KJ Jefferson was healthy. As soon as he got hurt, their offense stalled, but still, Texas A&M couldn't do much on offense because their quarterback situation is really bad. We talked about that last week. I know how good Georgia is. I completely get it, but I still feel that Arkansas, unless the only reason I think Arkansas doesn't cover in my mind is if they were so up for the game last week, finally beat Texas A&M, that they come down to earth a little bit. It's so hard for them. They've beaten Texas. They've beaten Texas A&M. So beating Georgia, I mean, that's even hard for a very good program to do, let alone an up-and-comer. 17 points is not a lot when you consider the fact that a team like Georgia can go touchdown in 5 minutes and cover that spread. But look, I don't want anything to do with Arkansas if Jefferson's not playing or if he's less than 100%. But if he's 80, 90, 100%, then I think they have a shot to hang in there. Pittman now 11-3 against the spread as a head coach.
Sam Pittman, college football head coach of the year right now if the vote were being taken. He's knocked off 3 ranked football teams this year. Not expected to win any one of the 3, but they've done just that. They've a terrific job, unquestionably, for Arkansas. My concern here now is I think they've suddenly woken up the eyes of everybody else. Now they're undefeated in the Southeast Conference, and nobody is going to be taking them lightly from this point forward, moving on with Arkansas. I know that they're a well-coached team. There's some talent on this football team, but we're talking about value here. And once again, I think there's value to the Georgia Bulldogs here. They've got 2 key players coming back here. One was a 5-star recruit. The other's an all-SEC player. They're back in the lineup for the first time for Georgia in this football game. I think there's a nice value price here for Georgia to be had here. Personally, if you had to ask me, I think Georgia's the best team in college football right now as we're speaking today.
By the way, the other thing that makes Arkansas really good is their defense. You know, those 2 linebackers, they have Grant Morgan, and the best name in college football probably, Bumper Pool at linebacker. So they hit hard, they fly all over the field, and that's why with KJ Jefferson, I think they have a shot. Without him, forget it. So.
I agree. I mean, you cannot be without your pilot. The pilot's taken this plane through all these wars and shot down all these enemy airplanes, but that pilot may not be here. Okay, and you don't want to expect the same thing from a backup pilot. So, definitely no KJ Jefferson, no Arkansas for me, but I do like Georgia in the game.
Michigan, Wisconsin. I knew when I saw the line that opened up at 1 Michigan that was going to change. I knew it. There was no way Wisconsin was going to be an underdog. They have been a dog just 13 times the last 10 years. And if they were a dog, then as a Michigan fan, I knew that Michigan was in big trouble because Wisconsin rarely a dog, and when they are, they usually do a pretty good job of covering, especially if they're a home dog. But this is interesting because I don't really know what to expect from Michigan after what happened in the second half against Rutgers. First half, they were looking like the Michigan team from all season, running the ball. I think they actually got away from it a little bit because in the first half, they were running it, pass, running it. Second half, they were run, pass, pass, run. It was like you got away from just running the football. So I don't know what to expect, but I know what I've seen in Wisconsin this year. Their offense, quarterback situation is terrible. And they showed that stat with Mertz about how bad he is against Power 5 teams or ranked teams, I think it was, ranked teams. He's terrible against ranked teams. Michigan's a ranked team. So I don't know what to expect in this game, which is why I'm not touching it. But it should be quite fascinating because if Wisconsin loses it, they're going to go to 1-3.
1-3, and here they're 1-2, Greg, but they've won the yards in all 3 football games they played. A lot better on the field than on the scoreboard for Wisconsin here, who defends their home fort as well as any team in all of college football. I am not a big Paul Chryst fan. I think they win football games in spite of instead of because of him. But they have a lot of talent on this football team. And again, I'm not a fan of John Harbaugh at all, especially taking onto the road after being camped at home 3 times in a row. And, here's a stat that will probably blow your mind. I didn't print this anywhere. But since John Harbaugh has been the head coach at Michigan, he's been an underdog in 13 games. He has not won one of them.
Wow.
He's winless as an underdog. Now, why is he going to step up here in this football game against a mad-as-all get-out Wisconsin Badger football team? I don't see it.
Well, that's why this is such a big game for Michigan because you lose, especially as a dog, it's same old, same old. It's whatever happened those first 3 games, everybody started to get excited. It's just nothing's really changed. But if they win, then it's, wait a second, we have turned the corner. I still think they're a lot better than they were because all the coaching staff is different. The mood is different. The plan is different. It's better, but it doesn't happen overnight like that. You're not just going to change the plan and then all of a sudden become a perfect football team. They're going to head in the right direction, but sooner or later they're going to lose a couple of games, and this is probably one of those games. So.
I agree with you. Harbaugh struggled in his career against undefeated teams. He's just 10-15 to the spread in conference play like that. I think the Badgers come extra hungry in this game.
Okay, now the other Big Ten game, Ohio State and Rutgers. Of course, I did a couple of Rutgers shows this week, and even though Rutgers lost to Michigan, they feel awfully good about themselves, had a chance to win there at the end. They played a great second half. But Ohio State has scored at least 49 points in every matchup with Rutgers. Rutgers has a shot in this game because Ohio State's defense isn't very good. And if Rutgers can move the ball effectively, also, I think what you notice in the stats is Rutgers is very good. They don't commit penalties. They don't turn over the ball. And these are things that Ohio State's actually not very good at, including defense. So, you got the young quarterback on the road again, first time at Minnesota, close game until late. So if Rutgers can take an early lead somehow, get the crowd behind them, maybe you get the young quarterbacks feeling a little bit nervous. Maybe they could cover this game because I'm not going to talk about an upset. But I do think this is going to be just like it was last week with Michigan. I think Rutgers is going to hang in there for 4 quarters.
I think they will too. Greg Schiano is a really underrated football coach. He was a good football coach on the NFL level, and he's really, really helped re-resurrect this Rutgers football program here. Really terrific, taking double digits. And as you say, until Ohio State patches up that defense, you cannot lay these kind of points on the conference road. I'm with you with Rutgers.
And then a couple quick ones before we go. Oklahoma State Baylor. Oklahoma State's a 3.5-point favorite in this one. I was leaning a little bit towards Baylor. They're 8-1-1 against the spread. Their last 10 as a road dog, and a perfect 16-0 in their last 16 as a conference dog versus an opponent off a straight-up ATS win, including 1-0 this year. That's pretty impressive. Oklahoma State just 7-3-2 against the spread. Their last 22 as a home favorite. Even though Oklahoma has dominated the series, and they played a lot better, Oklahoma State has the last couple of games. But Baylor, hey, they beat Iowa State. They showed that they're for real. So this could be a very interesting game.
Well, as the midweek alert statistical newsletter showed, Greg, Baylor won a big football game last week, but they were murdered in the stats. They got beat by almost 200 yards in the contest. That means they're going to go out with an air of a lot of false security in a football game like this. Mike Gundy has dominated this Baylor football team, especially as home favorites. He's 9-1 straight up and 8-2 to the spread. I think Baylor gets exposed for the manner in which they won their football game last week. I'm not a big Oklahoma State fan this year, but I think the price is right, and I think they get the job done.
Yeah, I think they're showing just a little bit too either much respect for Baylor or a lack of respect for Oklahoma State. I don't know which. I'm surprised it's down to 3.5 now. It keeps getting smaller. And I'm not surprised Baylor's in that stat situation you talked about because they've got a defensive coach. And defensive coaches, they're going to be very conservative offensively, and it's all about defense. And usually those teams are going to wind up losing a lot of those yardage battles, at least early on, while they're making the changes. So that doesn't surprise me that Baylor's like winning ugly at this point in time. Finally, Oregon, Stanford. We touched up on that a little bit ago. Oregon is 0-3 in the stats versus FBS teams this year. They're 0-2 against the spread as a favorite. Stanford, meanwhile, has covered 7 straight versus undefeated teams. This is going to be... Look, Oregon was in a battle with Arizona until the beginning of the fourth quarter. So, I don't know. You keep playing like that every week, and you're going to lose.
Yeah, you keep playing with fire and you're going to get torched. And eventually it's going to happen to Oregon. You hit it right on the head. They're just not getting the job done on the football field. They're getting pushed all around the football field. Yet they're the number 3 ranked team in the country who's undefeated, playing on name and reputation. That eventually catches up with you. I'm big, huge anti-Oregon this football season here. And I know they went into Ohio State and beat up on my Buckeyes. But that still didn't convince me because Ohio State's not the Ohio State football team that we've come to know and love the last couple of years. I'm going to continue to keep fading Oregon until they get a complete job done. I'm talking about going out, laying double digits, winning the game, and winning the stats convincingly. They've yet to do it, and until they do, I'll keep fading the Ducks.
All right, Mark. So besides the usual, and we're showing everybody the toll-free number that they can call to receive the special offer, the discount, use the bonus code PRIME, and this is for the newsletter. As we talk about every week, the sooner you take advantage of this deal, the better, because this lasts all the way through to the Super Bowl for NFL and college football. What else is going on as far as the website and, of course, everything else with the newsletter and what's coming up? NBA season and college basketball season is also starting soon.
Yeah, it'll be starting soon here. I'll just give you a quick little sneak thought that the Miami Heat are going to have a really, really nice basketball team this year. Down here, I'm getting a lot of press coverage in here, but they added a lot of nice pieces. And if they can get Oladipo healthy, which it looks like they may have this year, they could end up being a real force. I'm just going to say that before the season begins.
Okay.
As far as this weekend goes, we're on a major roll in the National Football League. We have not lost an NFL game on our service. I'm using a top play of the month game on the NFL card Sunday. Check it out at playbooksports.com. It's all available in a nice, attractive package. And mention that word PRIME when you call, and you'll save even more money.
Mark, appreciate it as always. Let's keep this going, the hot streak, and we'll watch and hope our horses come through for us as well on Saturday. And we'll talk to you again next week.
Hey, John, Greg, I appreciate that. John, I'm used to the horse race report. I'm used to complimenting him. He's doing so well, But really a good show. Again, I appreciate that. Enjoy the games, and I'll catch up with you next week.